Imagine a legal proceeding where the judge presiding over your case is the same attorney who once represented you. When the bench holds a hidden conflict of interest, your standard courtroom pleas hit an absolute dead end. To resolve this, you need a dual strategy. In the courtroom, you use the Structural Error Doctrine to demand an automatic case reset. Outside the courtroom, you execute a 4-phase administrative audit to challenge the official's personal authority to act. At combining rigid legal rules with commercial accounting protocols, you create a situation where the court must account for its own authority. When these two systems align, the law requires the proceedings to stop until the conflict is resolved. Under Rules 2.11 and 1.12, if a judge previously served as your counsel, it's a non-waivable conflict. The law reclassifies them as a definitively biased judge, creating a structural error. This automatically presumes prejudice, forbids harmless error review, and requires automatic vacatur. The Structural Error Doctrine removes the judge's discretion. Since the law presumes the hearing was fundamentally unfair, a prosecutor cannot argue that the judge's bias didn't change the final outcome. The error itself is enough to reset the case. Discipline is required when presenting this to a hostile court. If the judge tries to pull you into an emotional debate or a discussion about the facts of your case, you must maintain a fiduciary posture and stay focused solely on the rules of disqualification. If the judge interrupts you or becomes aggressive, use this script. I understand, Your Honor. My point is limited to the operation of the rules. This keeps the record focused on the law, not your behavior. If the prosecutor claims this conflict is just a technicality, you counter with, mandatory disqualification is a structural safeguard, not a technicality. If they argue the judge's participation was a harmless error, state for the record that harmless error analysis is categorically barred in structural error cases. Using these specific phrases ensures you don't accidentally enter commercial joinder by arguing the case's facts. It keeps the focus on the judge's lack of authority, preserving the error for a higher court to review. If the court dismisses your motion and refuses to follow the rules, you pivot. You stop seeking a remedy from that judge and initiate a Phase 1 administrative audit of the officials involved. This audit begins with formal demands sent via federally tracked certified mail. This provides you with a verifiable record of service and a federal chain of custody for your evidence. You serve these demands to 4 targets: the clerk of the court, the prosecuting attorney, the judicial officer, and the county auditor. Additionally, you must hand-deliver the Master Disclosure Protocol to the court clerk to ensure it is physically file-stamped into the court's permanent record. First, you demand the officials produce their wet ink constitutional oaths to verify they have actually sworn to uphold the law. Next, you demand their corporate identifiers, specifically the UEI and CAGE codes. This step addresses the theory that the court is operating as a commercial entity rather than a sovereign one. By demanding identifiers used by businesses to sell services to the government, you are asking them to clarify if they are acting as public servants or private commercial agents. Finally, demanding their individual surety bond triggers a liar's trap. If produced, they admit personal financial liability for their actions. If they fail to produce it, their office is legally vacant, rendering them a usurper without sovereign immunity. This sequence of demands shifts the burden of proof. Instead of you proving your innocence, the officials are now forced to prove they possess the delegated authority to hold office. After a statutory grace period, their silence triggers Phase 2, a notice of administrative fault. This documents their failure to produce credentials. Phase 3 follows, granting a final 72-hour window to produce the bonds or dismiss the proceedings. This window is a procedural necessity. It proves you exhausted administrative remedies and gave the officials every chance to comply before taking further action. If the 72 hours expire with no response, you move to Phase 4. You hire a notary public to certify their silence. Under commercial law, when an official has a duty to speak and fails to do so, their silence is treated as a tacit admission that your claims are true. The notary's certification of the silence creates a third-party record of administrative dishonor, known as a judgment in Nihil Dicit. This is a formal recognition that the officials failed to prove their authority. This default record creates estoppel. Because the officials failed to produce their credentials when demanded, they are legally barred from claiming they have lawful authority over the matter later in the process. By following these statutory waiting periods, you turn bureaucratic silence into a documented record of noncompliance. This creates a certified history of the court's failure to verify its own jurisdiction. Adhering to this protocol leads to a clear conclusion. Either the court grants a conflict-free reset of your case, or you secure a certified record proving the officials lack the credentials to hold their positions. With a certified default in hand, you can initiate enforcement. This can include filing UCC commercial liens against the personal assets of unbonded officials, or reporting their unregistered commercial activity to the IRS using Form 3949A. For the final step, you bypass the local court network and take your default record to the state Supreme Court. You file an original action, like a writ of quo warranto, to challenge the official's capacity to act and demand the dismissal of the proceedings. By treating the court as a commercial entity and demanding proof of authority, you move the battle to a field they cannot control. Following these steps allows you to hold the system to its rules and reclaim your standing.